much as I missed you. If this is your first time joining, hi, my name is Audrey, and this is the Fire and Fiber podcast where I talk about knitting, mental health, anything that kind of pops into my head. I'm coming to you from my home on the Haldimand Tract in what is now known as southwestern Ontario. If you're not aware, the Haldimand Tract is part of an agreement between the Six Nations of the Grand River and the Canadian government to give 6 miles on either side of the Grand River to the Haudenosaunee. This is yet another treaty that has not been fulfilled by the Canadian government. If you are new here, what I'm going to do today might seem a little weird. I'm breaking from the traditional model, not that I really have much of a traditional format or structure here because it's just not who I am, but I am going to be talking about something completely different. So we're going to do a knit and chat because I need to have my hands busy while I talk about something that is really anxiety producing for me. So before we do that, I did want to talk about my top. It's a finished object. It is hot here in southern Ontario and it's very humid, and so I'm wearing this right now to try to keep cool. This is the Saltbush tank by Briana Arlene. This is a size 6, which as you can see, it's very oversized on me. I knit this with 2 skeins of Vegan Yarns Albireo in the colorway Turquoise that I got from Flying Squirrel in Waterloo. The yarn is 51% cotton, 49% recycled fibers, primarily rayon from bamboo, so really lovely for the summertime. I definitely feel like it's helping today because I'm sweaty and then I'm also stress sweating, so I'm just like extra hot. Do you remember when we used to do that in like the 2000s? People would be like on their butt. I feel like that's something we need to bring back. I vote we bring it back. So before I get into what I wanted to talk about today, I do want to put in a trigger warning. What I plan to talk about today is very challenging if you are someone who has struggled with an eating disorder or disordered eating or body image issues, anything like that. So if that's you, or you feel like this isn't something that you would feel safe listening to, please end it here. I'm not mad at all. I care about people's well-being more than anything else. So if that's you, no worries. I'll catch you next time. So before I start into like the gab portion, I just wanted to talk about what I'm knitting. I decided that in the middle of my exams and everything else was a great time to try and finally tackle brioche. So I'm knitting the Suzanne Summer. No, not the actress slash workout maven. I'm knitting the Perennial Tank, and I am knitting it in 2 skeins that I've been hoarding of Lillian Pine Daylily sock. Lillian Pine is this incredible dyer who's actually not dying anymore. So when I found out that she was shuttering her business, I got a little crazy and I started hoarding this yarn, and I haven't used it, which is really stupid. So I finally said nuts to this. I think what intrigued me about this pattern too was that one of the samples that the designer knit was color blocked with like half of one color, half another. And I was like, okay, the yardage works. I can use 2 skeins because I often only have 1 skein of a particular colorway. So this is being knit in pink champagne and pink Cadillaic. So pink Cadillaic is the bottom peachy color, and then pink champagne is this ridiculous speckled beautiful yumminess. So I did picked like literally the hardest design in construction too. So it starts off with a double knit band and a saddle shoulder pickup, and I did have to frog about, say, like that much the first time. I just ripped the whole thing out and started from scratch because I wasn't comfortable tinking with brioche yet. So I just said nuts to this, and there are still some mess ups, like it's a bit of that, but it's for me. I don't care. So this is actually very potato chippy. I didn't realize that brioche would be as addictive as it is for me, especially since you're essentially knitting 2 rows every time for 1 row, and with the double knit button band. I love a double knit button band. I know people hate them. I love doing them. I love the look of them. So this is a project that I have been happily working away at. I still have a million other whips on the go as usual, but I don't know. This one, it just makes me very, very happy. It did come with 2 closure options, either a buttonhole or little ties. I chose buttonholes because I did actually make my own resin buttons a while ago. I haven't posted them online. I made them ahead of the Etsy Waterloo sale, and I haven't really listed them or sold them yet, but they're bopping around. So that's cool. So like I said, I wanted to get started talking about something that has been bothering me or on my mind very consistently for the past 2 months. And so I just kind of wanted to, I don't know if it's like getting it off my chest or coming clean. I feel like I have been disingenuous. I feel like kind of like I'm full of shit in that the internet's not real, obviously. Like the internet is a highlight reel that shows you what people want you to see. But I pride myself on being, not to be buzzwordy because I really don't like this word, but I pride myself on being authentic. Like I pride myself on my integrity and my honesty as a human being. And I am not perfect, but I at least try to be honest and be transparent. And so, if you've been around for a while, you've heard me talk about size inclusivity. You've heard me talk about body, not even body positivity, but body neutrality. You've heard me talk a lot about the fashion industry and fat phobia and how bothersome that is. And you've also probably seen me talk or post about being comfortable in my own skin and being in a bigger body, being in a fat body, and feeling like it was okay for me to take up space, and I wanted to take up space. I want more representation of a variety of bodies online, both for myself and for others. Like I think about, my kids and future generations, and I think about how different things would have been for me growing up if I had that available to me. I grew up in the 2000s in California, so I grew up in a really, really a hard time to be a woman and a hard time to be in a bigger body, raised by a parent who didn't support that. So my mom has been a fitness instructor my whole life in some capacity, and the way I was raised, and this is no shade on my mom. We're working on a lot of things, but the way I was raised, the sheer fact that I exited my adolescence without an eating disorder, I think is a miracle. And I've worked very hard as an adult to make peace with my body, to be appreciative of my body and the changes it's gone through and the things it's done. And I try really hard to instill in my kids like how someone looks is actually the least interesting thing about them. And so even, like I make them like I constantly try to remind them like all bodies are good bodies, and I make them repeat it to me. We talk about body shapes and body sizes and trying to dispel commenting on people's appearance because it's so irrelevant and it's so damaging. And I know what that damage felt like, again, growing up in like the Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie era, when tabloids were constantly posting about Mary-Kate Olsen and her eating disorder, and Jessica Simpson was vilified for gaining weight. And anyways, that's a whole thing. If you know, if you remember those years, I think it's hard not to. You get it. And so right now it's really scary when I look at social media and celebrities and the content that's being shoved down everyone's throat, and how thin everyone is and how thin is in again. And it just feels like we're going backwards in a lot of ways when it comes to being a woman, or just being something that doesn't fit into this very narrow conception of what beautiful is, or what attractive is, or what is acceptable, or what health looks like. So again, that's how I grew up. Like I grew up in Southern California with, really, really a big emphasis on physical appearance and, having it all and living up to these standards that were not within my capabilities. And I've had a lot of stuff that I've had to work through in growing up in that era, and how my mom chose to respond to it, which again, that's my mom and I have done a lot of work, and I'm not interested in telling someone else's story, but I as an adult and as a mother, I've started to understand some of what happened, and the way that abuse is processed and presents itself. Again, I'm not going to get into it too deep, but all to say, like, I can have these conversations with my mom now, and I can tell her about that, and we're working on that. It's not this contentious thing. Yeah, we both worked really hard, and we both are working really, really hard on our relationship with each other. And that trickles down to my relationship with my kids, of course. But that's the landscape I grew up in. And I have, for as long as I can remember, been a bigger bodied human. As a child, I was the tall kid, which, in grade 2 and 3 and 4, being inches taller than all the boys, it felt weird. I felt like I don't know, I wasn't as cute as the short little girls still, or I wasn't attractive to boys. And, again, that's what I was programmed to believe my value was like, how attractive am I to the male gaze? I didn't have the words for that at 8, but that's really what it was. And then as everyone, started developing, I developed really early. And so as a child, my body has always been up for was always up for discussion. It always, there was always adults and other people felt like it was okay to talk about my parents. And I didn't have the understanding to know that that was really fucked up, but either way. And being someone who developed early, like I looked like an adult from a very young age, and got a lot of attention that was deeply inappropriate. And when we look at what's happening in the States or what's happening worldwide, when as I feel like as the mask has kind of slipped and people are realizing that, like, powerful men have this, like, worldwide pedophilia cabal ring, like, that it's more widespread than we thought it was, it's extra hard to deal with. Again, as an adult. So so I grew up, I've for as long as I can remember, my body, my physicality, my physical being has been something that adults have felt that it was okay to comment on and ascribe a morality to, right? Like there was it was like there was a connection made between how I physically looked, which truly I had no control over, my hormones and things like that, and my genetics. And there was a connection between how I physically looked and my traits as a person, and basically whether I was good or bad, or it's super, it's fucked up. Anyways, I grew up that way. And again, I grew up like I think most girls of my generation and before, with the understanding that, like, the end goal is to be appealing to men, right? We were watching I watched the Barbie movie with my kids yesterday because they hadn't seen it, and America Ferrera talks about, like, when she's deprogramming, she has her big speech, but then she's deprogramming the other Barbies, and she's like, you have to take care of him, but you can't be a mommy. You don't want to remind him of his mommy because that's gross. And, like, then the woman would snap out of it. Yeah, there's impossible standards that are put onto girls and women. And just to clarify, like, when I say girls and women, I'm not trying to exclude my trans sisters or my non-binary relations or anyone like that. I am cisgendered, and so I can only speak from that perspective. I don't want to sound like I'm not being inclusive or eliminating anyone. I'm just speaking from my own experience as someone who lives in a body that I feel like aligns with my assigned gender at birth and always has, and et cetera, et cetera. Gender is a social construct. I'm talking about biological sex. Anyways, just put that little addendum in there. I'm not trying to exclude everyone. Yeah, I'm not doing that. And so I grew up with a really poor image of myself and really looked for validation from men. I mean, I say men loosely because they were technically men, but all the guys I dated or whatever. And so it was really hard for me. Getting pregnant was actually a really validating and freeing experience because for the first time in my life, it was not only okay to be fat, it was actually celebrated. And my body was celebrated for the first time ever, which I think is, a really sad commentary on society as a whole. But I loved it. And I genuinely loved being pregnant anyways. I felt like I had I always say that like pregnancy is like my ideal my ideal form. And then, your body goes through all this growing life, sustaining life, everything like that. And so my body fluctuated a lot in the years that I was having kids. And I had to again really try to make peace with what I look like in my body and recognize that like I could be at I've been at my heaviest and I've also been at my healthiest, and I can look at my body and say like, yeah, I am fat, but my body also grew and sustained two lives and two beautiful children. My daughter went through a phase where she'd be like, "Oh, mama, you got a big belly. Oh, mama, it's a big belly." And I'd be like, "Yeah, well, you live there. Everyone hates their first apartment, but you don't need to continue talking trash about it." And so, knowing what we know about girls and boys and body image and how early that stuff, starts to take hold either from their peers or media, I've tried really hard to separate body image from value. My kids have never seen me weigh myself. They've never heard me talk about my weight. We don't talk about other people's weight or other people's physicality. We don't do it. And, there have been times where Sawyer's said I have chubby arms. And I've tried to break that down with her. Like, okay, I know you think that you're hurting me by saying that, but like factually, I do have chubby arms. So let's try to dig deeper of like why you're trying to hurt me right now. Because that's what's been used by people to hurt others, particularly women. And if you're mad at me, let's talk about that. Anyways, shockingly, that's not really landing with a 7-year-old, but we'll get there. So that's a little bit about my story, about my body. As I've been getting older, I'm 36 now, things have been, like, my body's been struggling. Things have been hurting. Things have felt really crap. Last year, I had both of my carpal tunnel surgeries done. In 2023, I had a breast reduction, which was, like, life-saving, oh my gosh, like, just incredible to, like, helping me be comfortable in myself. That really helped because after breastfeeding, my boobs never got smaller. They were just big and heavy, and, like, I never realized how much pain I was in and day out until I woke up from surgery. And I remember waking up and like was laying on my back, and I remember thinking like, oh, I can breathe. Like, this is wild. So breast reduction was fantastic. And I had said from probably day 2, I wish I had done it 10 years ago, because it really helped me with feeling better about my body in a way of like, my body felt like a prison when I had these humongous boobs. I was never comfortable. I had to wear like really uncomfortable bras. My back was hurting all the time. Driving in a car, like with the seatbelt and the jacket. I live in Canada. You have to wear a parka all the time. Trying to find a parka that fit. Like the marks on my back, I constantly had, this is TMI, I constantly had like a fungus on my skin because of like the sweat and the rubbing. Like it was so uncomfortable. I had to wear bras to bed. I used to wear 2 sports bras when I exercised. Like, it was just really, really terrible. And so having a breast reduction was really freeing for me, both in terms of feeling not in so much pain in my body, but physically feeling better about myself. And I'm like, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with feeling better about yourself. Like there's nothing wrong with feeling good about yourself. Breast reduction, great, loved it. Can't say enough good things. So that was about 3 years ago. So for the past 2 years, I've always had to go for blood work with my doctor. After my first pregnancy, we found out I had a underactive thyroid, so I take thyroid medication and have since then. I did have gestational diabetes with my first pregnancy, not my second pregnancy. I had a lot of complications with my first pregnancy that I did not have with my second pregnancy, and I attribute that to in between kids. I took the first year off after giving birth, and then I worked really hard. I went to the gym. I was taking really good care of myself. I had done a lot of research into different supplements and things that would help counteract one of the conditions that I had. And I'm not going to get into it because I'm not a medical person and I'm not giving anyone medical advice. But what happened was I didn't get diabetes. I didn't get all these health complications. I had a very easy pregnancy. I had a great birth. End of story. 2 years ago, I been getting my regular blood work done. 2 years ago was the first time that my A1C was in the pre-diabetic range. And that was devastating for me. That was really, really horrible. And I'd gotten the news, and I remember my doctor's nurse was like, she had called me to tell me, and I said, so like, what do I do? She's like, diet and eat better. Like, you need to lose weight. Like, that's what she said to me on the phone. And that was it. And I said, okay, what's the follow up? And she's like, the follow up is you lose weight and you start exercising and eating better, or you're going to have to go on medication, which this woman doesn't know anything about my exercise life or my eating habits or anything. But, anyways, so I had, I was crying in my office and I was talking to a coworker of mine, and she was like, don't beat yourself up over this. There are so many different factors. Like, you're working a high stress job. Like, there's so many things going on in your life right now. And a lot of it too was that I wasn't drinking anymore. I wasn't smoking weed anymore. I wasn't doing a lot of the previous things that I had done to self-soothe. And so food was what I had. When my dad had been sick in 2023, I remember leaving the hospital and I was driving. I remember exactly where I was on the road. And I remember driving and thinking, I need to put chocolate in my mouth right now. And I remember being like, that's emotional eating. And that was the first time I'd really pinpoint what that felt like in the moment where I was like, okay. I've always used food to soothe, and there's always been a lot of shame around food and some of my eating habits and secrecy and things like that. But that was when it really hit me. And then it felt really, really, really defeating to be told I was pre-diabetic, because I've had lots of food and inflammation issues. So I do have quite a few dietary restrictions that impact both my inflammation levels. I have really high inflammation, and also like I get chronic migraines. So there are already a lot of food groups that I had eliminated. And so then it was like, it just felt defeating. And so the other challenging thing is that my family doctor, for all the wonderful things about him, and he really is great, didn't really keep up on anything. So it was up to me to say like, okay, it's been 3 months. Can you schedule me in for more blood work? And I want to go get my A1C checked, and then this, that, and the other thing, right? And so that's gone on for the last 2 years. It was August 2024 when I first had, when I was first pre-diabetic. But anyways, and I had done my research and I was reading books and I was trying to look into other supports and things like that. And there really isn't a whole lot. The diabetes clinic was like, well, you can come take a class, like a group class on pre-diabetes and all that stuff, which I had done that when I was pregnant. Really the only offer was like, oh, come talk to a dietitian. And as someone who, my mom has been taking me to see dietitians and nutritionists and things like that since I was like 12. I was like, I don't need that. And so I really dove headfirst into like prioritizing working out, prioritizing eating better, taking better care of myself, starting to prioritize sleep more, trying to do all the things, because as I've been getting older, things are hurting. And yeah, so it's been rough. The following August, my blood work actually showed that I was like in the diabetic range, which sucked and was really defeating. And so then I had worked hard the next 3 months so that my blood work in, I want to say November, it was back down in like the pre-diabetic range, but I haven't been able to get it under the pre-diabetic range in 2 years. Again, this is all self-directed. There's no doctor chasing me going, it's 3 months, you need to go do your blah, blah, blah. There's not anything like that. And that's not a reflection on my doctor. That is the way that Ontario has healthcare set up, and the funding cuts and all the nonsense. And I think this is like, what I'm learning is that I think this is a commentary on Western medicine in general, in that you treat the illness, you don't work on preventing, right? It's very much fueled by the drug companies, where it's like you wait till people are sick, and then once they're sick, they're worthy of help, but not before then, and definitely not if you're trying to prevent getting sick. Like, that's not okay. And there's so much of a moral attachment to certain illnesses, right? Like pre-diabetes, diabetes, like things like that. There's a lot of shame attached to it, and that's internalized from me too. Like, I felt a lot of that, even though my logical brain is like, nope, that's probably not what this is. My emotional brain has been saying like, you suck, you're lazy, you're disgusting, whatever, right? And what's been really challenging is trying to navigate all of this in the age of GLP-1s, in the age of Ozempic, in the age of you can take a medication and lose a ton of weight and everything's fine. And so, like, it's been really tough. And in starting my channel, I've had my Instagram for a long time, but like in producing content, I've wanted to show or represent what I would have needed to see when I was a kid, or what I would have needed to see as a teenager, or what I want to see now, which is big bodies, different shaped bodies, mom bodies, like, because I go to the gym 3 days a week and I can lift heavy just like, these like big beefy guys, right? Like I can do all that stuff and my body looks different than what they're like, again, what this like rigid standard tells us is attractive and beautiful and worthy and whatever, what health looks like. But, I feel like I've had a very clear message about size inclusivity, body neutrality, health. Bodies come in all shapes and sizes. All bodies are good bodies. I've worked really hard to feel that and believe that internally, and to also make sure that that's included in the content that I'm putting out, because that's what matters to me and that's part of my value system. So that is a bit of the backup. The other thing I have posted on here, so last night I also underwent a hysterectomy, and I've talked about that on here. And that caused huge shift in my life, because since getting my hysterectomy, I mean, don't get me wrong, I felt better than ever. Like, not having a uterus, not having a period, 10 out of 10 would recommend. But I have not been able to lose any weight. And not that losing weight has been my goal, but I have actually been like steadily creeping up despite doing all that I can do. And I've been working really hard, exercising, eating right, supplements, all that thing, to still feel moderately shitty, like all the time. Like I felt really shitty in my body for the past year. It's just been, it feels like it's felt like I'm not even like treading water. It feels like I'm like slowly sinking. And in the past year, a family member of mine, a close family member, has been diagnosed with early onset dementia. And my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I didn't know about it until after she passed. And so, on top of all this other stress and bullshit, I have become deeply terrified that I am going to get Alzheimer's, or that I'm going to get dementia. And so, again, this is like part of my hyperfixation. I've done a lot of research, and I've been reading books and podcasts and things about dementia prevention and things like that. And one of the big things is like exercising and not getting diabetes. And like the math goes with that more than and lifestyle actually is showing to be more impactful than your genetic makeup. So, okay, fine, don't get diabetes. So drink enough water, get enough sleep, don't get hypertension, don't get diabetes, don't do all these things. Make sure you're like the best mom ever. Go do your master's degree, go be really good at your job, go be a hot wife, go do this, go do that, go do the other thing. Lots of pressure. So since then, since May of last year, I have still been pre-diabetic. And on top of that, so I've still been pre-diabetic. I feel like garbage all the time. And my weight has been steadily, like very slowly, very incrementally, but like steadily climbing. And again, it's not about my body and how it looks, but it really has become how it feels. And so I was at my doctor a few months ago, and he had said to me, "What do you think about going on Ozempic?" And I burst into tears, obviously. And I kind of relayed to him a little bit in like a very condensed version. I'm at 33 minutes right now. Not nearly that long, but I relayed like it feels like I said, to me that sort of feels like a defeat. It feels, because I had thought about it. It feels like I'm giving up. It feels like I'm taking the easy way out, this, that, and the other thing. Telling him about my history and what I grew up with. And he said to me, "So are you afraid that if you go on this medication, you're going to develop an eating disorder?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess I am." Like, it was like the light turn on. I was like, I guess I am concerned about that, because, I've had people in my life go on these medications and just go for it. And it's been concerning. Like, some people do not look healthy. Like, we all can think of a celebrity or two who is very obviously on these medications and does not look healthy, and it's such a hot topic. Like, that's what my doctor was saying. He's like, it's such an emotional conversation for everyone. He's like, but from a medical perspective, what I can tell you, you being 36 and being pre-diabetic for 2 years, I don't like that. And so I had to sort of sit and like think on it. And I ironically I'd been talking to my acupuncturist about it, my naturopath, and she said, well, that medication in particular that you're referring to, which is not the one I just mentioned, and I'm not going to mention which one I'm on. What she had said was, early studies are showing that there's actually an improvement in people's inflammation as well. Just food for thought. It's like, okay. So I made the decision to try it. I'm not going to talk about the medication I'm on. I am not going to talk about how much weight I've lost, and I never will. And after this, I probably am not going to mention it again, because if I was taking medication for like a heart condition, no one would know or care, right? But I think it's important to talk about this. I've been humming and hawing on this for about a month because it is a very complicated issue. And I've been feeling really, really crappy about it and about myself, and really kind of depressed over it. And I'm kind of thinking that I might not be the only person in that boat. So if that's you, we're going to talk about it. If you're like, lady, this is what you wanted to tell us, like get back to knitting, that's fine. I get it. I'm sure there's people who are like, who fucking cares? I don't know. Do I think I'm so, like, do I have such an elevated sense of self-importance that I'm like, people need to know I've got a secret? No. I just feel like continuing to not address the elephant in the room is inauthentic, because I have been so very open about my body positivity, body neutrality, health, physical exercise journey. So that's why we're going to talk about it. And then we'll be done. And I don't know, maybe you find it helpful. Maybe I'm just full of shit. Who knows? So I started on the medication 2 months ago. And what I have to say is that before I could start on that, I had to go through the frickin' ringer with the insurance company, with the pharmacy, with all the different parties that just made it so goddamn difficult to get a medication to help me. Because really, what it came down to for me, like what my ultimate decision was to try this medication, is I want to be there for my family. I want to be around and be healthy for my kids and for my family. And I need to do something, because I've been trying all the other things and they're not working. And from a physiological, biological perspective, I know that the giant crash in hormones that I've had is not helping, right? Like I don't have anything left. So like, I've been on hormone replacement therapy, but like maybe that's not enough, right? Maybe I need help. Maybe it's a short-term thing. Maybe it's a long-term thing. Maybe I get on it and I hate it. I'm like, never again, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. I can't just like, I can't potentially sacrifice time with my kids without, like, I can't. So anyways, so I went on the medication, and I've been on it for, I want to say about 2 months, and I've gained and I've lost. So some of what I've lost being on this medication, I lost confidence in myself, in not my physical appearance, but I lost confidence in who I've worked very hard to be. I feel like I lost a lot of my mental space and my mental freedom, because I could not believe how quickly I immediately became obsessed with weighing myself. And checking it and feeling, sadly, feeling good about myself if I lost, and feeling not good about myself if I didn't lose or if I gained. Again, like, I worked so hard to get away from that mentality and those thought patterns. So I lost that. What I gained an immediate obsession with what I was eating and what I was putting into my body, which, again, after working so hard as an adult to not obsess over food, to not obsess over what is a good food and what is a bad food, having kids, raising my kids and being like, well, okay, it's not that something is healthy or unhealthy. It's that maybe that food is like a sometimes treat food, not a breakfast food, right? Like your body needs energy. What's brain food versus like not brain food? What's muscle building food versus not muscle building food? Like I've worked really hard internally and like in these four walls, because that's really all I can try to control, right? To take away like good or bad or like moral failing or anything like that away from food and away from what we're putting into our body. Like I'm trying to look at food as fuel, not a positive or a negative. So I gained an instant obsession with what I was eating because on these medications, you do have to really monitor your protein intake. You want to make sure that you're getting enough protein so that you're not losing muscle mass, so that you're able to function well. All these things, right? There's all sorts of gastrointestinal side effects. So you have to be really careful because, if you eat something that's really greasy or salty or rich or spicy or heavy, you could get nauseous or just not feel good. Lots of stuff. And then this is a kicker. I got food poisoning 2 weeks ago. It lasted for 5 days because these medications slow your digestion down. So whereas if you've ever had food poisoning or like a 24-hour flu and you need to throw up, you finally throw up, you get it all out, you feel better. No, I had 5 days of feeling bloated, having diarrhea, vomiting. It was awful. And I was just nauseous all the time and burping all the time. I actually went to the hospital to get checked out because I was concerned that I was having some sort of like side effect, like pancreatitis or something. I wasn't. They gave me a prescription for an anti-nauseant and I actually started doing better. But like it was still another like week and a half, 2 weeks before I even started to feel back to my normal self. And in that 5 days, I had lost over 10 pounds, all of which was water because I was so incredibly dehydrated. I couldn't keep fluids down. So unhealthy, so terrible. And I remember saying to Nick, like one of the nights when I was like full on naked on the bathroom floor, being sick and like physically helpless. I remember and crying, obviously, because I cry when I vomit. I remember being like, who would actually take these medications for anything other than a medical reason? Like, I really, truly cannot understand why someone would want to suffer like this. Again, I'm not suffering all the time, but when I was sick, I was really sick. So, and again, I felt like I was in prison in my body. I felt like I was like, if this is what it's like forever, I can't do this. Like, I will die. I will die. It isn't. Something else I lost. It's not how much weight. I have been losing my hair. Another fun side effect is that you can experience postpartum similar hair loss, and I have been. So lately I have been wearing my bangs in like a curtain fashion because I don't have hair anymore. I have got this like ridiculous hairline where my hair has been thinning and like I don't have volume in my bangs anymore. So like if you've watched my earlier stuff, I just have good bangs. Okay, so that's something else I've lost. I've also lost an incredible amount of sleep because these medications do cause sleep disturbances. It's getting better, but I lost an incredible amount of sleep. Something I gained is a newfound obsession with my bowels because these medications have gastrointestinal effects, and for me, that means the most violent constipation in the entire world. I've never been constipated a day in my life prior to this, and so I remember calling my mom. It had been like a day and a half. Now, my mom has ulcerative Crohn's colitis. Like, she has struggled with gastrointestinal issues forever. And it's not uncommon for her to be like 5-6 days. It's wild to me. It's like a day and a half. And I remember calling her and being like, how do you do this all the time? Like, how do you live like this? It's been a day and a half and my back hurts so badly. And it's so bad. It was going down on my legs, my knees, like in the back. I was like, how do people live like this? This is terrible. So I've gained an obsession with my bowels and had to really invest in learning. I had to start learning like belly massages and doing lots of stretches and all the things. What else have I lost? I have lost all my good clothes that fit. I went to go put on work pants the other day. I've been at home for the last couple weeks because, like I said, I've been sick. So I've been working at home, working in PJs and sweats a lot. and I went to go put on my work trousers and absolutely nothing fit me, which is a good and a bad problem to have because I love my clothes and have spent money on my clothes, and now my clothes don't fit. So there's a financial investment there too. So I've been losing money. What have I gained? I've gained an ability to run. I've gained a faster recovery from my workouts. I've gained a more productive workout. Like I said, I started running, which is just incomprehensible to me 6 months ago. So not a lot. Like I do a walk workout. I do a walk warm up at the beginning of when I'm at the gym, but like now I run for half of it, which again, incomprehensible. I've really felt the benefits of the anti-inflammatory properties. So trigger foods don't bother me the same way they used to. They still do to some extent. Like I had chocolate last night, so I woke up with a migraine this morning, and yep, I earned that one. I have had a lot of health benefits from this. I have lost my caffeine addiction because I somehow only need 1 cup of coffee in the morning now. I think because I'm so obsessive about drinking water all the time and there's just like not enough room. I've actually been okay with just like 1 cup of coffee, which I don't think I got down to 1 cup of coffee since I was like 17 probably. I've been drinking like half a pot of coffee forever. So I've lost my raging caffeine addiction, which is great. And you know what? I do like the way I look. I like the way I looked before. I like the way I look now. I think I just like the way I look as I get older. Like I've just settled into myself, and I feel like I've come into myself and my being. I've really like come into my own in the last couple of years anyways. So thankfully that sense of self I don't think has been shattered. It's just need to be, I've just sort of had to like recalibrate it and expand what I had previously understood to be my sense of self and who I am. So that's that. That was a rambly one. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it ever again. But I do feel like, you know, I've lost quite a bit of weight. And so like I think it's visually obvious at this point. Like I can't hide it or not mention it. And even if I could, it's felt gross not mentioning it. I don't want this to be my whole identity. I'm not going to talk about it all the time, but I feel like it's just lying by omission is still lying, right? I feel that way. And so I don't know if this is going to land with anyone or if I'm just completely full of shit. Who knows? Who knows? And health is not one size fits all. Medications are not one size fits all. There's no one right way to be. There's no fix it. There's no magic wand that we can all wave. What I wanted, like when I boiled it down to what do I want from my life? I want to be the mom that my kids deserve. And that requires me to be around for a long time and be healthy for a long time. I don't want them to take care of me. I don't want my partner to take care of me. I mean, I do, but like, I don't want them to have to do that. It required me to make another change because I had, you know, as much as I've been beating myself up, my logical brain knows that I've worked really hard and I've exhausted all options, and that it's okay to want to lose weight for health reasons. Like I have been very adamant of like, I don't want to lose weight. I don't want to change my body. I'm happy with how I am. And it's also really hurt carrying this much weight around on this frame for the last couple of years. It's really exhausting. And I haven't talked about that because I didn't want to ascribe that to like, I didn't want anyone to think that like it's okay to talk about myself like that, or it's okay to talk about being fat like that. I didn't want that, but it's been a really tough go. It's been very challenging, and I've been very quiet about that, and I've been in very serious denial about that with myself. So internet, now you know my big bad shameful secret. I'm sure I'm gonna get hate on this. I don't know, man. My inner critic is a mean little bitch. She's probably said everything there needs to be said. I hope this helps someone. I don't know if it will. Again, am I just like super inflated in my sense of self-importance? I have no idea. I just feel like if you have a tiny little space of influence, or I think you should be using any sort of platform you have for good and not evil. So as much as I hate the patriarchy and fat phobia and all that, both things can be true. It can be true that like society treats people terribly when it comes to being in a certain body type. And also from a physiological perspective, I want to be around for a long time. I want to be healthy. I want to play with my kids and be healthy. And that's okay too. If you're not already subscribing, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, share with your friends, tag your friends below, comment down below. Please don't unsubscribe. I don't know, whatever. Do whatever you need to do. Wear your sunscreen, drink enough water, hug your pet if you have one, go outside, breathe fresh air, put your feet in the grass, tell someone you love them, and stay safe. Happy knitting.